On today's episode of Locked On Wild, it's getting real dicey in Minnesota. And as we record this, the Los Angeles Kings already have a 1-0 lead.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us to recap a pretty dismal weekend for the Minnesota Wild as they get thumped by the St. Louis Blues. Another player now is dealing with injury. We'll talk about that, as well as just the putrid numbers for this Minnesota Wild offense over the last multiple months of the season. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined finally today by Alex Micheletti. And I say finally because, folks, you would not believe the lengths at which it took to get this episode recorded today. We tried last night, and there was some sort of technical issue with the host platform. So we couldn't get connected for more than a segment. So we tried it again today. I lost internet. So I am boosting the signal of this with a wireless utility to be able to even get this episode up. That just shows you the dedication level of Locked On Wild to get episodes on the air, no matter if the technology fails or if it's user error, which sometimes it probably is. We still find ways. Contrary to the Minnesota Wild, at least in the goals department, Alex, we'll dive in, and we're recording this as the Los Angeles Kings game is going on, so we'll have updates as the game is unfolding. But I want to start with just a look at what is becoming a very tenuous wild card hold right now. The Wild's 79 points. They are 6 points ahead of both Vancouver and St. Louis. The St. Louis Blues are 7-2-1 in their last 10. Vancouver is an even 5-5. The Minnesota Wild are 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. We are finally starting to get signs of life from key players coming back, but that is not going to by itself change what has become a fatal flaw for this roster, is the inability to score goals. Alex, this is not a 2-week problem. This is a multiple month problem in which the Minnesota Wild offense is downright embarrassing in 5-on-5. They are, when you are having to claw with everything that you have to score 2 goals in a game, that's not a good sign. And the Wild have failed to do that by and large. They have 1 goal in 4 of their past 5 games and 6 of their past 9. So I say scratch with everything you have to score 2 goals. They can't even do that right now.
Yeah, remember when the back end was even contributing to the offense? They're doing nothing back there. And there's still some really good players on this team, and they're not producing. Matt Boldy's been a ghost. Matt Zuccarello's been a ghost. Marco Rossi's been a ghost, and it's just when those guys can't even get anything done, then you're really in a panic mode, because you can't rely on Marcus Johansson. You can't rely on Gustav Nyquist. Obviously, they acquire him, and he has no offensive ability right now, and yeah, it's real dicey. And like I've mentioned in the past, I mean, there's a lot of the lines are fourth line capability right now. It's not good.
But Seth, you don't think the Wild would actually miss the playoffs based on how they're playing, right? Because they're getting Kirill Kaprizov back. They're getting Eriksson back. right? Right. Here's the thing is, so let's start with the updates that we had today. I am getting fired up here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go with the updates that we got today, which was to say we didn't really get a ton in the way of updates on Joel Eriksson and Kirill Kaprizov. The outside hope is that Kaprizov can start to get himself ready to ramp up within the next 10 days. So that puts you at the end of March to be able to start to ramp up. That doesn't mean
he's not even skating. I mean, what does progressing off the ice really mean? That was a nothing burger. And then I almost threw up when I heard the day-to-day to Brodin. I mean, when they've thrown out day-to-day, a lot of the times it has turned into months, before a player gets back. So who knows with Brodin too. So that's terrifying too, because you just have no idea when they say day-to-day.
Yeah, day-to-day has taken on a meaning that I did not know possible, because I don't think anybody even knows what the word means. Day-to-day is supposed to mean, quite literally, it could be today, it could be tomorrow. And for as much as we have maybe a little bit of a semblance of a timeline for Kirill Kaprizov, there's no estimated timetable for Joel Eriksson.
No.
And the funny thing is as much as Kirill stirs the drink, and we're going to talk about it because I have the numbers. This team is not finishing on the most simple shots in front of the net. They have the second fewest high danger shots. I heard on the broadcast tonight, they were talking about how good of a job the Wild have done over the last 5 games about getting to the net and generating high danger chances. Yeah, guess what? The fact that they're generating high danger chances is not translating to actual high danger shots on goal, which means that you're within you're from the face-off circles and you still can't hit on those. Because let's keep in mind, a shot on goal occurs between the net, in the net area, between the two pipes, between the two posts and the crossbar. If it's a shot that goes somewhere in that area, it's a shot on goal. If it misses from there, it is a shot attempt. It's not a shot on goal. And the Wild, second to last behind the juggernaut Seattle Kraken offensively, second to last in terms of high danger shots this season in 5-on-5. So they're missing from in close. They are seemingly relying more and more on a perimeter style as we go. Like it's not a revert back to form for a lot of these guys. It is the form.
Right. I mean, and when your only chance to score is hopefully to get on the power play, that is tough. I mean, 5-on-5, that's abysmal. And if they want to make the playoffs and they can't even do it on 5-on-5, I mean, good luck. And it's so tough for the season ticket holders and fans that pay so much money to go to the home games at the X. And this is some of the efforts that they're giving. It's brutal. There was an article today in The Athletic talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're raising in some sections 20% for season tickets. And it's like, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine, what it is for the Wild, because obviously it keeps going up. And yeah, it's just too bad. It seems like, it's becoming more and more corporate at these games, and nobody wants to see that and get the true fans out of the X there. But yeah, if they are going to continue to play like this, why even get season tickets at home?
Yeah. And I mean, you like fans booing the team off the ice. Right. Well, I'm sorry, but that's warranted when you are playing like this at home.
Well, and this adds to the fact too, with the non-injury updates, really, no one knows who's going to be in the lineup.
Yeah.
You're going to shell out, like $100, $200 to maybe see, Kirill Kaprizov, who knows? Jonas Brodin, who might be your favorite player day to day, turns into week to week, month to month. Like that is tough.
Like I am probably sounding very alarmist right now, but I think there needs to be a very heightened level of concern by this team with how the play has been. Getting booed off the ice on your home arena needs to be a wake-up call, no matter if it happens in game 2 of the season or in game 66. That should be a warm-up or a wake-up call that prompts changes. And guess what? The only reason that there were lineup changes made in tonight's game is because Marcus Foligno got hurt and was not able to play. Otherwise, the Minnesota Wild said earlier in the day, they're rolling with the same lineup for about the 6th game in a row. And I like, this is rapidly approaching, like the ship is going down and we're just going to let it. Like it is rapidly approaching we have no idea how to fix what is going on. And this is going to just end up in a fireball at the end of the year. But I want to dive more into these numbers because there are so many questions in my head that this raises. Like another player now added to the injury report. What does this say about the type of style that Bill Guerin wants this team to play? Is it even sustainable in this day and age of the NHL? So we'll talk about all that. We'll dive into the messy numbers for the Minnesota Wild, basically since January. All that's coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Buckle up because we are just getting started. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Factor. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. One of my favorites about the Factor meals is the morning breakfast smoothies that they have in their arsenal. I'm somebody who, with now getting used to working in the mornings primarily, I'm not going to lie, a lot of times I'll hit that extra snooze, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you don't have any time to get breakfast going for the day. And if you've tried to get through a full day without breakfast working in the morning, not easy. But Factor has breakfast smoothies that are ready and waiting. All you got to do is grab one, take it with you, and it gives you the energy you need to get through the day. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I literally have a bag of Wonderful Pistachios sitting on my coffee table. The no shell, honey roasted, my absolute favorite go-to bag. And I got to tell you, going from a bag of potato chips for a snack when I'm watching TV, when I'm watching the Minnesota Twins, when I'm watching the Minnesota Timberwolves, going from a bag of potato chips to a handful of Wonderful Pistachios was an amazing choice. Because let's be honest, Wonderful Pistachios are unbelievably good. So if you want to make the switch yourself, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. No postcast tonight, unfortunately. Going to be an early day for me with state basketball tomorrow. State basketball going on all week. We'll see when we can get one in. Hopefully we'll be able to get you one this weekend. But this is the final busy stretch of the year for me. So once we get past this week, then I think we're in the clear to return to normal postcasts from there on out. Although at this point, like how long do you need to break down one goal? How long do you need to break down one goal and 17, 18 shots on goal? That was, I think, the infuriating thing about that game against the Blues, which I was calling the Mavericks game. So I didn't get a chance to see it. Honestly, didn't even pay a ton of attention to it just because I was so dialed in on the Mavs game, which, by the way, Alex, great to see you and Pat out there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
lots of fun. Mavericks
great
going
spot.
to the national tournament. So yeah, it was awesome. Good debut for you. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'll send you the goal calls because they're pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, but was doing that, and I saw that the Wild got throttled. So I was looking into the numbers, and I think the thing that is problematic and is bothersome about this type of a game is you see the 18 shots on goal. Now that's shots on goal is not an end all be all for team performance, but I think the thing that was the biggest issue for me is the fact that the Wild had 19 attempts that missed the net. And so let's look at the anatomy of shots on goal here. So you have your unblocked shot attempts that get through. You've got the shot attempts that are blocked, and you have the shot attempts that miss the net entirely. So of the 37, now that's not counting blocks, just the ones that got through and the ones that missed entirely. Over 50% of that completely missed. So then if you are trying to score, you have to take that remaining high 40%, and you got to try to do something with that. Well, guess what? A ton of those were coming from the perimeter, which we all know by now. Perimeter shots are about the hardest to score on if you don't have net front presence. And guess what the Minnesota Wild don't have right now? Net front presence. So it all cycles together.
100%. And the past couple of games, the high danger chances that they have had, I mean, guys are missing the net completely. It's crazy. That's demoralizing when you can't even get a rebound off of them too. And like you said, so many perimeter shots. And, we were talking last night, I was watching the Utah, Vancouver highlights. And I mean, Logan Cooley, the former Gopher star, I mean, he, on his goal, he snuck up behind the D. Nobody saw him, and he got right there in front, and Lankinen kicked out a juicy rebound, and he just buried it for the game winner. And it seems like the hockey sense is just dried up for the Wild too, and that's a scary thing that can't be happening this late in the season.
Well, look at the goal that Kempe scored on the power play from the right side faceoff circle. Timely, accurate, and with force. He was able to get it past Philip Gustafsson on a great feed from Kevin Fiala.
Of course, Kevin. Yeah.
You know how many times I've seen a player from that right side faceoff circle on that exact play either break their stick, miss the puck entirely, or send one so errant you nearly take somebody's teeth out in the 10th row of the stands.
Right. And this goes back to the penalty kill too. I mean, these other teams are watching the tape and video, scouting beforehand, and they just know the Wild tendencies right now too. And of course, Fiala wants to give it to the give it to the Wild every time he plays them, going forward in his career. So that's tough to see him get on the score sheet.
And like this is the big issue with this roster right now is you have so many of these guys that, yes, like Marcus Foligno is a good example because I can tell you right now, if he misses extended amounts of time, that is another injury that's going to hurt. And it's not to say that Marcus Foligno is, one of those guys that you are relying upon as much offensively, but you're also not playing him in a second line role.
Right.
You're playing him in a third line role, and he had already exceeded all of the numbers that he put up last year. So you want to talk about a guy that was bouncing back? Marcus Foligno had bounced back this year.
He's been their most consistent forward, and that's tough when a bottom six guy is your most consistent forward. Well, of course, 97 if he was available to play, but that's tough right now when you have a bottom six guy being your most consistent player night in and night out.
Update from the game. John Merrill saved what should have been a goal for the Los Angeles Kings. So let's give some credit to John Merrill. It has been foolish to suggest that David Jiricek should be in the lineup over him because I'd like to see David Jiricek try to make that type of a play. Boy, I'm getting real. I am getting crabby. This is bad. We got to talk about what I think is another big concern for this team because, Bill Guerin has really dug into that. And I get it. I understand it to a point is that if you don't have the offensive talent, you need to be able to keep teams from scoring. That makes a lot of sense. But there's a way to play good defense without being just this bulking, lumbering giant of a team, which I think lends itself to these injuries. So we'll talk about all that as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. Guess who's been paying for a PlayStation Plus subscription for the last 6 months without ever actually having used it? Me. Thanks, Monarch Money, for helping me find that and get that taken care of pretty quick. Now, that may not seem like a lot, $20 a month for a PlayStation Plus subscription, but it adds up over time. And that's just one item. That was just one item that Monarch Money helped me find that needed to be taken care of so that money could go directly back into my pocket. There are like 30 others. So big thank you to Monarch Money. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, unfortunately, no postcast tonight. I'm gonna be heading to work probably about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So it's too I'm going to bed probably as soon as this gets posted. But we will get them back and going. This is the last week that I'm going to be really up against it. after that, it'll be smooth sailing to the end of the season, whether the Wild make the playoffs or don't. So we'll push the postcast and we'll get back on track with that. Appreciate everybody's patience, as it's just another part of going to a new place, new schedule, new routine. It all melds together. But Alex, let's finish by just talking about this style of play that the Minnesota Wild are operating under Bill Guerin. And they say so much. They say so much that the team takes on the identity of the general manager. And we know Bill Guerin to be, he was a player that certainly scored plenty of goals, but he also was very much an agitator, somebody that liked to operate on that thin line, not unlike Ryan Hartman. But, you're playing this just overtly physical style in which you're trying to limit and wear down your opponents because you don't have the speed or the skill to match up. Is this causing Minnesota Wild players to become more frequently injured? Case in point, Joel Eriksson, who has missed time the last couple of seasons. Now, I will say, I don't know that the injuries themselves were related to that particular style of play. Honestly, the biggest culprit has been blocked shots for this team over the last few years. Eriksson has broken bones now in 2 seasons on blocked shots. So I don't know how you do a lot about that, but look at Jakub Lauko this year. He suffered a core injury, then re-aggravated a core injury. Marcus Foligno has dealt with core injuries over the past few seasons. Like, I just wonder if trying to physically wear down the opponents and grind them into a paste, I wonder if that is having an unintended effect on this Wild team to where it is actually doing more to the Wild than it is to the opponents.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at a lot of teams in the league are finesse teams, and they use their speed to their advantage. Colorado for sure, as we know, Edmonton, and it's this team. It could just be the bodies of some of the guys on this team. They just can't handle more physical play than what's necessary, and you have to. It's an adventure every time a puck touches them because you don't know if it's gonna gonna break a bone, and it doesn't matter who it is.
Drink milk in Sweden?
Apparently not. Get these guys some milk sponsorships over there in Sweden. There's got to be some hometown milk companies out there.
Let's get Kemp's on a sponsorship with exclusively with the Swedish players.
Yes.
Well, and it just honestly, I'm honestly asking. So if that's a dumb question for me to ask, somebody please just light me on fire in the comments, because I'm honestly asking, because there are other teams certainly that deal with injuries. It's not exclusive to the Minnesota Wild, but this is not just a one season thing. This has happened multiple years that you have rashes of injuries that have. Think about the Winter Classic a couple years ago, and I know that was more COVID-19 than actual injuries. Think about what happened last year too. The Wild had, I think, 8 players out of the lineup at one point. Like, why is this happening?
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And then like we've talked about, over and over, we just don't know when guys are officially gonna actually be back. That's got to be tough, for game planning too, because we just what is going on here, and setback after setback. That's really you can't make that up, and always at the worst times of the year too. Imagine if they didn't bank those points, at the beginning of the year, they wouldn't even be close to the wild card spot.
They would have a high first. Oh, wait. Well, I don't know. Maybe if they are not in a postseason position, maybe that Jiricek trade doesn't happen.
Oh, and did they gave up a second round pick to a guy who hasn't scored yet?
Yeah. So this was another kind of funny too. And I know I went back and forth on the whole trade deadline thing. Everydayers know I'm a pretty reactionary host. Like I go with what I feel, and it's sometimes that gets me in trouble, but I just don't want to sugarcoat it. If I don't feel good about how something is going, I'm going to let you know. And like the whole not spending a pretty penny at the deadline thing is ultimately it's the right call. But as Michael Russo said in his recent article, it feels like you could have done a little something more. And Bill Guerin is going to be fielding questions all offseason if it turns out that Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson do not come back before the regular season is done. He's going to be answering that question all offseason, whether he likes it or not. But the thing is, you sent a second-round pick to the Nashville Predators for Gustav Nyquist. You sent Marat Huznadinov, Jakub Lauko, and another pick to the Boston Bruins for Justin Brazeau. And you traded a first and a second and other picks to the Columbus Blue Jackets for David Jiricek, who has been with the NHL team for the last 7 games and is sitting in the press box every single one of them.
Yeah, it makes zero sense. And I mean, the guys that they did pick up at the trade deadline, this is after, Jiricek. I mean, Gustav Nyquist was extremely struggling with the Nashville Predators, and Brazeau hadn't scored in the past 17 before he got sent over to the Wild. And he can barely crack. If he gets up above 5 minutes, it's, throw a parade for him. Yeah, that it just, I would want to know what went into that, draft war room, trade deadline war room to say these guys were playing well. Let's clearly they were not playing well before they were acquired. So I don't know what the scouts saw in them to think that they were going to be the ones to help get the Wild out of their scoring slump.
So for those that wonder, like, okay, it's easy for you to just sit here and rip everything post haste and criticize all the moves that have been made post haste or post what after they happened. I can't think of the phrase. It's easy with hindsight. There we go.
Yep, yes.
It's easy with hindsight to sit here and rip all these moves. What would you have done? Pick a lane. I'm not like, you're probably better off not going the Brock Nelson or Brock Besser route, and spending exorbitant amounts. The equivalent given up for Brock Nelson was a first and Danila Yurov. I'm not comfortable paying that. So, but here's the other thing. You could still have used some of that LTIR money to go get a center, to go get a wing that is capable even of playing a middle six role, as opposed to a guy who is the reason that he was doing okay in Boston is because Boston is a terribly slow skating team. So he fit right in. And now that you go to a team that is somehow faster than Boston, he sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. And what we heard before he, or before the first time he played, that he was going to maybe help on the power play. He's not even sniffing a second on the power play. Yeah, it doesn't you no good if you're 6'6" and you can't skate, to have all that size. If you can't even skate, you're not going to last very long in the NHL if you can't skate.
Yeah. And so I guess my solution would have been is to stop doubling down on this type of thing. It's great. It's great if you feel like you have a good enough defense to be able to stop teams from scoring more than 2 goals a night. But guess what? If you can't score 1, you're going to lose that game. So that would have been my whole thing. Is scoring was by far the bigger issue. And to go about it the way that they did, not great, but We'll find out here. We'll find out here in 15 games if it's going to be enough, because it is a better effort tonight for sure. So that is a step in the right direction. But the Minnesota Wild are still losing to the Los Angeles Kings. They play the Seattle Kraken on Wednesday, and then they have far tougher games coming up after that. So this is not going to be easy. This is going to come down to the final day of the regular season. And so it is going to be a sweat. I was going to quote a Sir Mix-a-Lot verse right there. I don't know why, but we're not going to go there. But it's going to come down to the absolute end of the season. And so if you think I have no hair now, wait till we get there, because it's going to be a scratch and a claw and everything that you can do to get every single point. And it's probably going to feature a lot of games that are just like this. So we'll see what happens, but that's what we got for you here tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning into this episode here as the Minnesota Wild currently taking on the Los Angeles Kings. We'll have an episode for you in the morning as well. Just talking more about what we have seen from this team over the last couple of weeks, diving further into this lack of offense and trying to figure out where the heck some of the top contributors on this team have gone. So that's our plan for the rest of the week. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We have new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.